Welcome to the Post Float Podcast.
Well, we are recording.
All right, we're back. Back from 2019. And first guest of the year, we got Kai Johnson here.
Yep.
After I get done with this little introduction, feel free to basically tell me everything I said wrong, man.
Oh, sure.
But Kai's coming to us straight from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln here, and the Students for Sensible Drug Policies. Basically, so I was just going to open it up, let Kai kind of tell us what that is from a perspective of the overarching, chapter. Kind of what, I know it's been around for a while, what the initial mission was, but also kind of what are they envisioning to do in the future now from a local perspective, now that it is a local chapter that you're a part of here at the university, and I believe you said you're like the founding president of the one here.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of just let you roll with it for a little minute and tell us all about Students for Sensible Drug Policy, man.
All right. Well, I started the local chapter at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln last fall, 2019. And SSDP is actually a international grassroots organization. So there's over, I think, 200 chapters worldwide, places like Africa, most United States. A lot of the states have local chapters, and so the overall goal of SSDP is just to end the war on drugs.
Okay.
To be blatant about it. That's the number one goal. But there's several ways that they go about doing this, and a lot of it rests on changing the stigma around it, as well as providing education, because things don't just get changed from people demanding things, and so it takes people understanding why these changes are needed, and then that's what will help gradually make those changes to our society. And I think I really like SSDP because they kind of hit the point on the grassroots led, so all the chapters are led by students, and a lot of the work done internationally, bringing all the chapters together, are done by students who had recently graduated. So it's a really, really young organization in terms of its members. And I think that is really important because a lot of the older generation are less likely to change their thoughts, growing up into a really heavily influenced era, against the war on drugs and stuff like that. And so I think that bringing in this new generation, kids that are, 20, even 30s, there's a greater chance of making that type of influence on those type of people.
Get some fresh blood.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it'd be hard to take somebody from the counterculture movement and then just not already have kind of a predetermined ideology one way or another. But what is it? When you were saying that initially about you went in with having a young perspective or a fresh perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I was also wondering, is there a reason? Because if you have, I know you guys do take outside membership, or the SSPD does, but obviously from a rule standpoint, do you fear of any corruption of anybody getting involved with that from non-student perspective, where now it becomes business related?
No, of course not. I think that the goals set in place are kind of, they set parameters for that to allow, without that type of conflicting motives that any other party would bring. And I think that a lot of the people that are part of it are really true to its values and stuff. So
nice. And like you said, so the predominant issue is the war on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess you said this chapter you just got started up in the fall here at UNL. What's the first step? What's the first foot you put forward?
The first thing that always has to be done when establishing an organization like this is getting a message out to people. Okay. Membership is great, but even providing information to non-members and to the community about how drugs should not be stigmatized as the way they are, bringing in, shedding light on the topic, and even allowing for sensible debate on them, because a lot of places, when you start talking about subjects about drugs or drug use, it's automatically either stigmatized or shut down, or it's just really uncomfortable to talk about them in a lot of public settings. And so I think SSDP allows for that setting where you can feel safe and you know that your thoughts are being respected.
Yeah, definitely. So more of a dialogue standpoint versus a debate standpoint, kind of an open discussion.
It's a good distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like going into it like you're already not going into it to butt heads. You're going into it with the mindset of education. And so, like, as far as, like, you said, you like getting your message across. Like, do you guys have just, like, you know, like a go-to, like, message that you're trying to, like, send? You know what I mean? Like, what would that be? Like, if you had to, like, I
think I said just the war, end the war on drugs is pretty much the biggest message that SSDP tries to send to people.
And so, like, do you guys have, like, I don't know, I mean, obviously, like, it's an uphill battle, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, when somebody says, you know, it's like, well, why would we do that? You know, like, what's your response? Like,
well, when people ask why we would want to end the war on drugs, you know, there's a lot of different reasons. And I think the most prevalent ones have to do with the negative impact on society that the war on drugs has done, you know, with the absurd incarceration rates, the society we've created against, you know, something that's not even living, you know, it's just a substance in most cases, you know, it's a drug or a plant, you know. People try to attach a certain morality, a bad morality to drugs, and I think that that's just not right to do. You know, coming from human history has always used drugs in some way or another, and it's just been within this last century where we've tried to attach the complete opposite morality to drugs. Because in a lot of cases, drugs were used in a spiritual setting or a healing setting, and now it's completely been taken out of that setting that has been in place for most of human history and just completely put a target on its back.
Yeah.
So
I love how you brought that up too, and just listening to us talk to each other, it's really, there's a nomenclature that has changed quite drastically, right? Like we talk about what you were talking about. We spoke to you, you know, last week. Want to go into ethno, you know, pharmaceuticals. Oh, jeez, man, lay off the drugs, dude. Come on.
I forgot to turn the light
There's
on.
a war on those things.
There we go.
Does that look better? But speaking of the nomenclature, like obviously we're sitting here talking about this war on drugs, and you start talking about the histories of people utilizing drugs as a medicine, but really, like you were talking about with pharmacology, it's plants.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
they weren't. It sounds so different when you say, hey, there's these ancient civilizations or just civilizations in general that have been using drugs as a mean for, you know, spirituality or whatever, but it sounds a lot different when you say they've been using plant medicines or if they've been as like rituals, passages. I mean, it's a large part of most cultures. We're almost babies to it, you know?
Yeah.
Yet we predicate everything based off of this is the standard, you know, or the gold standard. I guess, so.
And even I think there's a lot of misconception on the beginnings of drug use, and most people, you know, think that you know, the drug use appeared out of the 60s and the 70s, and it's really short-sighted thinking that way, because there's even at the beginning of human history, there's always been people who have wanted to change their state of consciousness for, you know, personal reasons, and that's something that is characteristic of humans and the human consciousness. So
Or simply explore it, right?
Yes.
Question it. I mean,
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up because we're actually going through that Michael Pollan book, How to Change Your Mind, and he talks about, like, in that, like, first wave of, like, psychedelic discovery in, like, the 50s and the 60s, it's, like, tossed around that, you know, psychedelics escaped the laboratory and into society when, like, in all actuality, they were basically thrown over the laboratory walls into society because Timothy Leary was just like...
right.
So it's like, yeah, a lot of people do think of, like, the 60s era as, like, when drugs were discovered. but it's like
It's that counterculture resonance that creates a lot of that stigma and a lot of that pushback
Yeah.
and fear, and which any society is going to brace itself for or try to defend itself against, right? Like you said, it almost becomes a morality issue, which is super interesting. So when you label things this way, of course,
Well, it was a crazy thing.
Right.
It was a crazy time, right? Like, I mean, that happened.
absolutely.
You know what
I mean, the counterculture was a real
society
thing, yeah.
was on the rocks. Things were weird, and we didn't know, anything could have happened. But it's like that was just like basically our rediscovery of psychedelics, right? Like it wasn't like the discovery; it was like the rediscovery because it's been around for thousands of years, right?
Well, the thing is too, like Hoffman. I mean, accidentally.
Albert Hoffman?
Discovered LSD.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So-
And so it's like it was exactly. That's what I
Right,
mean. So it's
yeah.
like it was an accident. Like he didn't mean to, and so it's like it was more like of a rediscovery. And so like when people think of like the psychedelics and the drugs, they think of that time.
It started right,
But that's just it's a matter of education, right? Like we just have to like educate people and say, oh no, like that's just like when our society basically rediscovered this thing called psychedelics, which used to be a regular thing, and then when it kind of got locked down into science, it went sideways in the 60s, and people just kind of don't want that. They don't want to associate with that. But it's like if you can educate them to like, no, like this is an ancient thing. It was used as a medicine. It's like, oh, okay, we could kind of start to open the door to have that conversation where it's not just like butting heads against people saying lock them up if they're using drugs because they're drug users. Yeah. And it's like it doesn't make any sense. Like, like we just have to like educate folks and ourselves as well, like, because I'll be honest, I don't know much about anything, but like when I was talking to you the other day, Kai, you seem to have a decent understanding neurologically of what's going on. Is that true? Like you're studying this stuff. Like how deep are you into that kind of side of it?
I think I like to look at it for like a pastime hobby type of thing.
Okay, cool.
Most of my research doesn't at all fall within this topic, so
Okay.
mostly just looking at papers on my time and just
trying
to understand the topic.
Yeah, because like from I don't know, like listening to that Michael Pollan book, he does a really good job of explaining like there's like a whole neurology section of it where it talks about like the pharmacological side of what's going on chemically. Like it's kind of like a neat chemistry lesson for a dummy like me.
And speaking of, like, we're missing out on that because most of that research that's done from an imaging perspective or anything else is all overseas. We could be on the forefront of some pretty amazing drugs in a good way.
Sorry, I just tickled my throat.
What happened, man? The crickets in here? Ricket crickets?
Yes. All right, sorry.
Jeez.
I got an email from Pete Ricketts the other day because I emailed him about medical marijuana, and he said, and his response was just, Congress has determined that marijuana is dangerous, and so federally it's illegal, and so we won't make it legal here, which my reply was, well, it's like at the very least you should be taken off Schedule 1 because medicinal purposes, like with epilepsy specifically, show like it definitely helps with seizures. So medicinally, it definitely has a purpose. So it should get at least removed from Schedule 1 to have medicinal purposes.
Arguing with an automated...
I am arguing with an automated bot, Levi. Yes, dude. Like, so Pete Ricketts wants me to send him like $1,000. He's stuck in like this island outside of Nigeria. I don't know. I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna save Pete Ricketts. You guys.
It's legit, dude. Yeah. If you're helping people, man.
I'm totally arguing with this
See
bot about like why we should have medical.
Meet somewhere where it's legal,
Oh.
But that's so interesting because obviously this conversation could go a multitude of different directions, right? And we'll definitely funnel it back to just figuring out where you think the first step is, because I think that's the most important part is education. But there are so many different angles, and the nomenclature is so confusing. My wife is a pharmacist, so she's a legal drug dealer. Especially from a retail perspective, the way you see how often things are just handed out. But if it's not illegal, it doesn't have that stigma. You can give, opioids all day long. You can hand out heroin left and right. It's basically what you're doing. Same with amphetamines and anything else. They're readily used. It's almost encouraged in a business sense. And then they've run amok for quite some time. The
Yeah.
amount of suffrage and death and everything we see from a legal perspective makes me think that that's not what we're trying to protect from making something illegal.
Absolutely.
If that's the perspective, right? Like, hey, we gotta, if anybody's gonna look after your family better than you, who's it gonna be? The government, right? And so we don't want anything bad to happen. We don't want to break apart families. We don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want you to hurt yourself because we obviously care about you more than you care about yourself too. And so we're just gonna make certain things illegal, but certain things not illegal, and then start getting weird into this classifications of medicinal versus non-medicinal, Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule 3, etc. But really, it's just such a slippery slope that we've seen that I don't understand how it's not so just obvious now. And I know it's a topic of conversation now. A lot of states are starting to decriminalize and etc. But there's literally, we've created a funnel. We've created a vacuum for basically the best case scenario for the wrong people to have an advantageous standpoint from this quasi war on drugs. The legal drugs that do well for the people who, I understand. I'll slow down a little bit, but like, it's great to have opioids. It's great to, all these drugs should be legal, period. And I'm not even talking about the changing your consciousness type version, but you get in a motorcycle accident, you're gonna fucking hope there's some morphine. You're gonna hope these things are available. You can go home some Vicodin, etc. They have a purpose, but they're not always being utilized that way. It's still a product, and the lifeblood of any business is to make money. That's a return on investment. So there's a distinction that just needs to be had. That when we're having these conversations, what conversation are we having? Because if you can make money off it, it'd probably be legal. Right?
Yeah.
If the right people can make money at the right time, or kind of dissolve some of the regulations, etc., and some of the scheduling at the right time, more than likely is going to happen. So having an overarching conversation of, hey, we get it, man. This is how the game works. This is how the game's played. That's great, but let's remove some of the veil, some of the fig leaves, some of the propaganda, and have these conversations of education. So that being said, coming all the way back to that. So you guys need to educate the local community, and you want to do that. That's obviously, I'm assuming, part of your mission statement is just to dissolve the stigma behind recreational drug use, whether to explore your consciousness or just like you go to a bar and have a beer, from a social perspective. But I guess what Jesse was starting with too is, what is like you said, you first have to organize the message, right?
Yes.
Let's say once you have that message, where is where's the conduit in the community with that? Is this more something that, like you said, you maintain grassroots perspective on, and you build up slowly, sensibly, everything else, or is this something that you go in front of legislative bodies for to present evidence, etc.? Where is the best and most efficient way to then take this mission, this education mission, and place it in Lincoln?
Yeah, I think that Lincoln, Nebraska especially, they're pretty far behind on all aspects of, whether that be legislation to the culture to understanding what's actually, these subjects. I think that after that, people, we spread a message of, in educational attempts. I think that the best thing to do would just be to try to change the legislation here in Nebraska.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, that's how a lot of influence occurs, and SSDP works on trying to change legislation, both locally and nationally. So,
are you guys already involved with any local or junior congressmen or anything like that or are you still so new that you're like, hey, we need to organize, get our missions together, and start reaching out to our local representatives to bring this issue into the Capitol, to have these conversations?
Yeah. I think, even Nebraska, we're pretty far behind. Even talking about, we haven't even legalized cannabis use.
Right.
And so SSDP here at Lincoln is teaming up with the Sensible Marijuana organization, Sensible Medical Marijuana organization, to get signatures for the petition to get that on the next ballot.
Oh, cool.
Because that is, I think that's a step. It's a milestone towards opening up
and it changes
further
the
routes.
conversation, right? Because now
Yes.
you're talking about medicinal use for marijuana, which there's plenty of empirical data to suggest, especially from, I mean, so my wife, she does pharmacy and oncology standpoint though. So there's some been legalized there too in very quasi ways where you can give THC to cancer patients just due to the fact that they have no appetite. You
She
know?
can do that.
Yeah, there are prescription drugs that are legal. It's so confusing.
So wait. She's prescribing THC here in Nebraska?
I think so.
Wow.
I don't believe they just call it like here's marijuana.
Right,
but-
no, it's like tetrahydrocannabinol.
I
What are you gonna call it?
I believe it's for people who, you know, they need to eat. They need calorie intake. They
That's-
have no
yeah.
appetite. They're very...
Medicinal purposes, Pete Ricketts. I put that in my email.
That's kind of this gray area that I don't understand too, and I'll have to ask my wife more about it. But I'm pretty sure it happens. I'm almost positive that, yeah, if necessary, you can go to any pharmacy here in town. If they carry that, they're going to get that to the patient that needs it.
So let me understand. You have a piece of something people can sign right now. You have a petition that people can sign.
Yep,
Is
I
that
have
correct?
a petition.
Where can people sign this?
I will be holding several booths in the upcoming semester at the campus.
Okay.
And so if people pass by there and are wanting and willing to sign the
Is that
petition.
like at the union?
Yep,
or-
at the union. I will be hosting several table sessions.
And how many signatures do you need, and what do you need to buy? And this is for medical marijuana,
Yeah,
right? Is what
medical
you're shooting
marijuana.
for? Okay.
I'm not too sure on the numbers. I think it's over 100,000 by, a little bit over this time next year.
Okay, and that's for the state of Nebraska. Get it on the ballot, and so 2020 just passed, it's about a year, just over a year away from now. Okay.
Yeah.
And have you guys already started to gather signatures, or is okay?
I have, and SSDP is trying to get more signatures. There's a really big concerted effort from that organization in general. There's a lot of people doing great things out in the community, going to several different events, and trying to get
I
signatures.
remember the last ballot that they were trying to do that too, and it just seemed like they did it. Like they were like, we have hundreds of thousands of signatures, but it didn't happen. Do you know why?
I'm not really sure why
Okay.
it didn't go through. I know that this one should be a little bit more successful just because it's kind of a pushing. It's going to push the legislators to either go with this bill or to propose one themselves, because it seems that Nebraskans are ready for medical marijuana, and they're going to get it whether they make
agree.
the legislation or
I
if
agree.
the senators do. And so I think that's the biggest goal of this upcoming petition.
Yeah, it's always interested me too, because I'm pretty sure whether you're from deep red Nebraska or whatever it is, on a topic such as sensible drug use, everybody still knows where it's going. Everybody knows medical marijuana is going to be a thing.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. So let's do it sensibly. Let's do it correctly. Let's do it where it's best for the people and the economy, and make it holistic. Let's do that already, because it just seems like dragging your
Yeah,
feet is
it
a big
is.
fucking waste of time. And next thing you know, it's on your doorstep. It's there, and you weren't ready for it. So do it right. Organize it, move it forward. Help the economy, create jobs, get this in people's hands that need it, etc. Because, like you said a minute ago, it's obvious it's gonna happen. It just will. All 50 states will have medical marijuana. It just will.
Yeah, personally, I think that one of the greatest things that comes out of the legalization of these drugs is the research that we can do
Right.
on them,
I love that you
because
brought that
the
up.
scheduling is just it makes me angry that we haven't updated the scheduling, and that we still have the type of scheduling system that we have. It's over 40 years old, and the Schedule 1 restricts any research into a drug, and I think that that's completely detrimental to scientific studies for potentially extremely useful drugs. And so
Yeah, so Schedule 1, meaning there's no medicinal benefit whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah, like in that book, How to Change Your Mind, back in the 50s, like they were saying that like psychedelics are going to be to therapy what the microscope is to biology and what the telescope is to astronomy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and people still carry that torch. It's very true. I mean, they literally thought for psychoanalytical research, things like that, for psychiatry, it was just This
It's
was
like
this
years
was the
of years of therapy in a matter of hours.
Yep.
Like because like the patient and a therapist. I mean, that patient just opens up. You know what I mean? Like if it's you know, when it's done right with intention and all that stuff. But it's like, man, like that book is.
it's a really good book
Again.
if you want to see kind of a non-biased discussion on psychedelic drugs especially from a very famous, very good journalist who had never had a psychedelic experience prior.
Yeah, he was
Uh,
59.
yeah, 59 or 60 years old,
it
right?
says when he started.
Michael Pollan, I'm sure people listening to this probably know who he is. He writes a lot of books on nutrition, food, etc. He's a great journalist. But yeah, so it's a really cool perspective because he literally starts the whole book right just from the history.
Yeah.
And he walks you through it.
Oh yeah, it's
it's, it's a beast all the way up till I don't think it's chapter 3 when he has his first experience.
yeah, and he was like on the cusp of 60 years old when he had his first psychedelic experience. So it's like it's a legitimate, like unbiased, like you know what I mean, like.
And he's very not to say that he comes from the standpoint that he's just going to be anti it because of any woo woo mystical spiritual perspective, but he's very secular and scientifically sound and has a hard time being able to quantify anything as not being subjective when it's
He's super objective.
he's very objective, and so he comes from both standpoints too, even kind of dissolving some of the earlier studies that were done with Leary and Ram Dass and things like that, and how
Those guys.
Rest in peace. He just passed away.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true, man. Baba
It's
Ram
unfortunate.
Dass, rest in peace. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Richard Elbert at that time, Elbert, yeah, and Timothy Leary. But sorry, it's so hard to keep this podcast like serious, but it cracks me up. So Timothy Leary and Ram Dass, you can't fucking fault them though from the fact that they're like, look, dude, same thing we're kind of saying. Everybody should be able to explore their consciousness, and they did it from the most like democratic way, not the smartest fucking way, but they were like, let's do this democratically and give it to the masses, right?
Yeah.
That created a real problem.
I think that's where a lot of the mistakes happen.
100%. But like I said, you still can't fault them from just having this
Yes.
like
Yeah.
beautiful thing where when you look at Hubbard, it was more of a top-down approach. He wanted the same thing,
Yep,
but he was also literally a hardcore conservative.
Al Hubbard.
Al Hubbard.
Yeah.
He was a conservative. He was evangelical towards his belief in Christianity and everything else. And he thought he was ordained basically to spread the message of this drug. Man. Specifically LSD, right? Was he on? Yeah, an angel told him. And but he had so many connections and everything else. I mean, he was giving this to world leaders and yada yada. There was a funny thing
That's
they
such a
said.
crazy story.
They fucked up because they didn't get it to Nixon. And Pat, right? That was the thing, man. We screwed up. We didn't get it in Nixon's hands.
Did you hear about the Al Hubbard story? That guy, he was like that crazy.
Nah,
I
he's a
don't
trip,
think I
man.
have, but
He's like one of the godfathers of psychedelics in America for sure. Especially a lot of what eventually became underground. But he was connected to world leaders all over the place. He was a multimillionaire. He spent his whole fortune just trying to get people to examine this drug.
Yeah, and
Figure out what's going
therapists in the 50s actually credit this crazy like pirate gun toting angels
Possibly
told
CIA
him
agent.
that he's gonna spread LSD to the world. They credit this crazy guy with the idea of set and setting. Like so, psychotherapists bringing in that whole like having a nice place for the patient to have a trip.
That's why they call it
came
the Hubbard
from this
method.
crazy dude named Al Hubbard.
Yeah, so like if you go to Johns Hopkins or anywhere else and you go in there and see their set and setting, it's going to be the Hubbard room or the Hubbard setting. It's him. Yeah, he's the one who came up with the idea of like no white coats, none of this. This is not a good idea, man. And he was the one who actually determined that setting was just as not just as important, but was a huge piece of the puzzle versus just the set, And he's the one who coined that. Man.
Yeah, that was such a cool little getting.
He doesn't get any credit for that.
Yeah, he's like kind of like one of those hidden legends of history.
That's
that
I like
just,
him though, like that too, because
he should be known, man. Because I think it's a character.
But he wasn't like a Leary. He wasn't like a
that's the
narcissistic
thing,
like
right.
messiah. You know,
But,
I mean, he
like-
kind of thought he was, but
He wore like a Navy military suit and would like pack a gun, but was like all about just like spreading LSD.
spreading LSD, man.
Oh man, like
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Can't imagine.
I think even the set and setting that he proposed, I think that in itself is, education. And I think that is one
100%.
of the biggest things that you need to know before you ever try to take a mind-altering substance.
I like that you brought that up.
And so, I think the 60s and 70s, that's what happened there was inevitable. The craze that came out of, rediscovering these types of substances. But I think where we can move on from here is that educational aspect. I think that's where they really missed out on back then was, providing that education at the same time as providing the drugs.
Yeah.
And so I
to go,
think a
Tim.
lot of stuff just went haywire.
Thanks, Timothy Leary.
Yeah.
The intention of it, man,
Mhm.
like is just because I mean, like they're curing addiction. You know what I mean? Like using psilocybin, like a high dose of psilocybin, they're curing like smoking and drinking addiction. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a
So it's like-
ridiculous efficacy rate.
yeah.
For
So it's like
addiction.
I mean, like. Not just doing it to go wee, you know what I mean? Like they're doing it to like these people are having a really hard time. Like they're you know. And
That
it's
is
like,
going to be the distinction because even if you want to go wee, you should be able to wee.
Yeah,
You should,
Right,
yes, 100%.
but it is like I was saying. I mean, if you're gonna come at it from let's have a discussion, we can't all just sit around and say
and go wee.
because it doesn't make any damn sense, man. And so I think everybody should go fucking wee all the way home, man. I couldn't agree more, and I'll go off about it again if I go down that road. But yeah, you should be sovereign over your own conscience. Period.
Yes.
It's ridiculous that somebody thinks otherwise, but
Thought we lived in a free country, man.
it's such a trip too because such a trip. Yeah. I was just like in the float tank. I was thinking about it, so I was gone for a while, and I never really thought about this potentially being one of the main reasons that I love to float so incredibly much that I don't look at out after the float and try to analyze why. But if I had to, one of the biggest reasons is that I perceive what happens as very objectifiable. I have the experience that I've had on psychedelics where there's a dissolution between the duality of me being an individual, me being a self, and everything else. I've never really stopped and broke that down like I have when I have been on psychedelic drugs, before I lived in Nebraska and had a different name. But it's the same thing. There's this potentiality of, it's such an incredibly therapeutic thing, even though I don't float therapeutically, but when I stop and look back at it, I'm like, it might be one of the reasons I love it the most is because I'm in there, and for however long, it doesn't always happen for the whole float, but as metaphysical and mystic as it sounds, I'm one with the fucking universe, man, and there's no place I'd rather be, even though while I'm doing it, I don't see that I'm one with the universe. You literally are experiencing this thing that to be able to differentiate it from being subjective and objective is very, very, very difficult when you have a great meditative state or a float or a psychedelic. It's so real. It's so incredibly real. And the fact that we can't research that needs to be researched because, like I said, for me personally, I'm lucky, though I think I'm very mentally sound. I don't suffer from a lot of ailments, etc. But I think that could change somebody's world immediately, especially if they knew why neurologically or through whatever reason this is what's happening, whether you had a spiritual mystic experience, whatever you think it was, who cares, man. But you just did this to yourself, and this is why it's beneficial to kind of dissolve that that duality. And that's what happens to me. That's what my float was. It was fucking just, I laughed in there, man. I came back and I don't know how long I've been there, but I was just like, God, that's it. That's my favorite part of floating. And I've always said it in different analogies and never really broke it down. It's the same as psychedelics, kind of that default network,
Yeah.
It just, everything eventually just has to give up. There's nothing coming in.
Yeah. They in that How to Change Your Mind book. It
I'm
talks
not
about,
quite to that
how
that far.
Extreme meditators in fMRI machines.
Oh yeah, I've read those research.
Have the same like ability to disengage the default mode network, which is what psychedelics do. Like psychedelics disengage that default mode network, which is the part of the brain that doesn't allow other parts of the brain
Again, this is
to
what
talk.
they theorized.
Yeah.
It was two different researchers, which is the cool thing is they were doing imaging. I think it's in London or something. That's what I mean. Like we're missing out. And there's all this research where they literally are injecting people with psilocybin. They're going in an fMRI machine. They're mapping the brain. They're trying to figure out what happens. Fucking incredible.
Yeah, it's like they'll have them think about something that involves like themselves. Like
That's so
it's like
interesting.
where what do you think about you? What do you think, or place yourself here? And it's like the parts of the brain that is like where you.
Yeah.
That's the default mode network just firing away.
Like the ego and everything else. Yeah.
And so like meditators like have that like ability to like look at that. You know what I mean? You're constantly like that's part of the practice is just like observing
Zen
that
Buddhists have been
that
saying
ego
this
mind
forever,
and so it's like that makes sense that it's kind of like the same kind of therapy, like you know what I mean, like I could totally see that. And I don't know, just from what I hear about the research and stuff that's going on with psychedelics, and just from my own experience of seeing folks come here to float that have like brain trauma and mental issues and autism and all these things, that the relief that I see these people getting here I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that it's a similar style of relief, just because, man, like, it is profound. Bing! Levi says profound like every episode. But no, it is, and it's just like,
I'm sure there's a correlation, and that's what would be so neat is what is the correlation, because we do know what's going on. Like, if we can give somebody these drugs and we know how they're acting upon certain receptors in the brain, and we can follow this mechanism and then find out if there's some endogenous potential there as well, chemical imbalances, whatever it might be. But the crazy thing is when you hear some of these people, especially the cancer, the people that have terminal cancer, that literally so long story short, my mom was gonna die from liver failure. She was just at the brink, and I always thought she was pretty, had her religion or whatever set in stone, ready to go, but she didn't handle it well. And I was really worried about her, so I was trying to get her to sign up to go to like Johns Hopkins and do some psilocybin, because whatever it was, like, it was terrifying, like just terrifying. And at the same time, I'm reading all these accounts that's going on, and it's ridiculous. Like something like an 80% efficacy rate of people who were absolutely at the point of existential angst and nihilism with the fact that they do have terminal cancer, coming back and just saying they have, and I'll take it this far, no fear of death whatsoever. Because they just watched themselves dissolve. There was no more self anyway.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And it wasn't like they knew that there was nothing. It wasn't like I don't know, what exactly experiences they had. I've never done a heroic dose in a setting like that.
When I remember listening to the book the last time, like he talks about how like it could be that default mode network part of the brain like disengages, so your idea of who you are slips away and disappears, and so like that's basically, you know what I mean, like you lose the idea of yourself, like
so
yourself
you have died.
disappears.
Right.
Yeah, it's like it's gone, and then it reemerges. Like, so I imagine like
and they assume they're just like, that wasn't so bad.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's
and I felt that, I mean, full disclosure for Jesse and I, troublemaking kids at one point in time, but
I'm with you.
I felt that dissolution of self, like to the extent where it's almost scary at first, right? Like you are disappearing and you can't stop it, right? And I'm gonna stop and digress. I'm gonna digress for 1 second though, because even if there was a concerted effort, especially like in the 50s, especially during the craze of the counterculture and the fear of that in the 60s, to creating propaganda around drugs, you know who did the best of it, man? Us. Remember when you were a kid and you did acid more than 3 times, you'd go brain dead? Like all those, like I was scared shitless, and my parents didn't scare me. No, it was just these constant repetition of these ridiculous stories and everything else that
Oh yeah. Like,
we just.
Oh yeah, I heard about the guy that had the Bible full of acid and he fell into a swimming pool and now he thinks he's in a jar of peanut butter. Like,
Or just jumping in front of
I've
traffic.
heard so many people tell that same
But
story.
here's the beautiful thing: is there's professionals that do this now, and they understand these things and this dissolution of self. Or like that's everybody that has done enough drugs in their life now could tell somebody that was scared to go maybe to a camping trip and do something like. Here's the catch, man. If you want to have a good experience, and obviously this book breaks it down, but the number one thing I would said in my past self was, well, it was let go of the steering wheel.
Yeah.
If you try to
Surrender.
fucking drive this thing, if you try to control this, that's
another great
that's why
thing.
it's gonna be bad.
Buy the ticket, take the ride.
Yeah, that's right.
I like it, man.
Johns Hopkins like literally has like what they call flight instructions.
Yes, that's what I want to get to.
for
This
their
is
patients.
awesome.
They call it flight instructions for their tripping patients.
And tell
It's
some
like-
about that because they talk about the flight instructions in that book. And my point before you bring it up though is to say some of this education is people are just scared.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, if you make it kind of like, oh, dude, there's flight instructions, this thing, and they're like,
It's not so scary.
I could do that, especially with a medical professional.
Yeah, like they have like 2 therapists there
Yeah.
with you at all times with a variety of music, which I imagine is really bitching, and some eye shades to lay there and listen to. God, I hope not
turn that
that.
off, man.
Yeah. So the flight instructions, like they talk about, like if you're starting to have a hard time,
They
like
had some acronyms, right?
like oh man, I can't remember the
I don't
acronym.
know,
But it's
yeah.
like go to the door. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if there's a door, like that's locked, go through it.
Yeah.
Like if there's a monster, face that
Yeah,
monster
ask him
and
what he
ask
wants.
him why is he in your mind. You know what I mean? Like it's in your mind. Like
How
what's
less scary
doing
does it
there?
make it just immediately like that? If you never had a psychedelic experience, you'd be freaked the fuck out.
Yeah.
But if somebody's like, oh, check it out, there's all this research. There's a lot of people that are smart. I've done these things, and they literally just say this. If you see a scary person, ask them what's up. It's
Yeah.
going to be okay.
Right.
And they've done it so many hundreds of thousands of times, and it's worked every time. And there's no there is, but whatever the LDL level is like for a lethal dose of psilocybin, or any of that, it's
doesn't
fucking,
exist, basically.
it's ridiculous. You have no physical reaction to it,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
You may think
just
you're
in your
having
mind.
one. You don't. Your heart rate doesn't even increase. Your blood pressure doesn't change. It's all just on these receptors.
I just remembered, like, so the flight instructions have come a long way. Like, he was talking about Andrew Weil back, like, I think it was in the
I know that
70s.
name,
He's
too.
been on Rogan a few times. He's a doctor. He's
Okay.
the big Santa Claus looking guy.
Okay.
He knew Leary and Ram Dass in Harvard. He talks. I guess like when they were doing the studies back in
Yeah.
the 70s of sessions of people doing psychedelic sessions, when somebody would be having a hard time, he would say, will you excuse me for a moment? There's somebody in the next room that actually has a problem.
That's right.
And when he would say that, that person would be like, oh,
Yeah,
I guess I'm not really having that hard of a time as somebody else. If he's got to go take care of somebody else.
That's
It's
right.
like-
It was a physician in the emergency room, right? Who
yeah,
started
yeah,
doing that.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't think they do that anymore. I think they've come a long way.
Well, that's what I mean. They probably would. Like Kai says, if this was a topic of a conversation that didn't have to be tabled at the table, that sounds weird.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Like, you should have these conversations, especially, we've said this a million times before. Take your kids to a park, tell them they can't go there, where they're going to go. That's where they're fucking going to go.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you tell them we can't talk about drugs, they're, no. They're going to go and experiment, man. And they're going to experiment in a way where you didn't guide them, and that's your fucking job.
Man,
The rite of passages are so beautiful for some of the more non-American people that have been doing this for thousands of years, where literally you're 14 or you're 12, it's time to go, bitch. Like you're gonna go in there, you go. It's basically all those stories that you've ever read to, like all the Joseph Campbell hero's journeys. It's all the same thing. You're going into the belly of the beast, and you got to make it back. And there's something really amazing about making it back, about doing it.
Oh yeah, dude. Speaking of something like super scary, you know what I mean? Like the consciousness. Like, so in the tank, I was thinking about this. So there is a psychedelic scientist, Robin Carhart Harris, in London.
That's the guy in London.
Yeah, he's working with this lady who's funding it. She's like some like
Are you talking about the lady who drilled
the
the hole?
lady that drilled a hole in her head, dude. I was thinking about that, the float tank. Holy shit.
We just made a really bad argument for pro. You know.
Yeah, but the
Drug
lady's
doctor.
got money, okay, and she drilled a hole in her head because she wouldn't find a doctor to do this.
I forget what it's called.
Vaso something. I have to look
She
this up. I
theorized
just
that.
remembered this though. Like in the float tank, I was like, "Holy shit!" I remember hearing about this lady. She couldn't find a doctor to drill a hole in her head because apparently, like if you drill, they used to do this back in the day, where if you drill a hole in your head, it'll help with your circulation or some shit. I don't know about that, but I was laying in there imagining going drilling into my fucking head, man. Like,
There's no way I could do
Jeez.
that. I would be so scared of it.
and I'm trying to like meditate through it. You know what I mean? Like hearing Sam Harris's voice,
It's
just
just a
going.
thought, Jesse.
This is just
It's
in
just
your
a drill.
consciousness.
Pain is just a
The
representation
drill
of your
is just
consciousness.
drilling a hole into your head. Your head is just in your consciousness. It's
all gonna be
fine. Oh my god, dude! I forgot all about that till just now. Like that was so real in the float tank.
How
Just
could
laying there
anybody
going,
do that? I've drilled a million things. Can you imagine taking a drill bit to like a blanket?
Yeah, like it's gonna drilling into a table is a motherfucker, dude.
Well,
like
think
drilling
about-
into
you're talking
your
about skin,
skull.
dude.
She did it herself. Like that's insane.
So anyway, we should
Back to
legalize drugs.
psychedelics. Sorry, I had to divert there because that was. How was your float, by the way, Tom?
this happens, guy.
Well, I think my first one was a lot different from my second.
Yeah.
My first one was super introspective, thoughts the whole time, and then this last one was thoughts for about 20 minutes, and then like blacked out, didn't know what really happened for 30 minutes, then came back, like
Nice.
I'm probably like halfway done, then the music plays, so it was a lot different.
Those are those moments where you can peer in the darkness where with psychedelics you see.
Hmm.
You actually see.
Yeah.
Or you think you do. I think it's so real, man. Nobody can ever tell me it's not.
It's like yeah.
It's just a different. Like you see reality in a way where sometimes you come back and you're like, "Fuck, I was just there. Damn, I wish I could go back and then realize I'm there." But you have those moments with psychedelics, even when, prior to you dissolving, like you have a realization that you're experiencing something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh man. I was all over the place in the float tank today, man.
was
I was like,
on.
it was so crazy. Like the whole Bill and Ted thing where they're
Yeah,
like flying
yeah.
through there. I was like doing that, and then I would like backflip into like another world. It was just wild. Like I was just like going all, and then I was like flying, and I was like Supermaning it, and then I was like, it was all over, dude.
I love it,
It was
dude.
just like a super duper dream, and then it was just like. And I'm back in the tank. Like
Yep.
I'm laying there.
That's
like,
that thing I'm talking
like,
about, that
What
dissolution
the
of
fuck?
self, 'cause
Like,
you're
where
awake.
did I go?
Yep. I think it's kind of that hovering between like your brain
Oh.
thinks your body's sleeping, body thinks your brain's sleeping.
Dude. So I was laying in there and I'm thinking like I started to super relax. I started to like let go like of me, like disappearing, like that whole like disengaging the idea of Jesse, like let go. And I was just like, oh fuck no, like don't do that. You know what I mean? Like
Did you have that moment?
yes, and I was going back and forth, and it fucking. I was like laying in the tank, and I was thinking, I was like, it's like a dog, like when you're like your dog is just like, don't fucking leave me, don't fucking leave me, and it's just like that was my fucking ego mind just going, no, don't do that, no. And I was like, hey man, I remember telling him, I was like, hey, I'm gonna be right back, dude, just it's okay, like I'll leave the
right back,
keys,
buddy.
and it's okay, like I'm coming right back, like and I just go,
Here's a
whoosh,
treat, man.
and then I'd go do the whole fucking like fly thing, and then it's like, fuck. And I was like, oh no. And I felt that like, don't go, don't leave me. Like, so it's like, oh, that was crazy.
I fucking love that because you can step back and look at that as being representative of so many different things, man.
Oh yeah. Like,
And-
what part of my mind
But
is
you're
that?
doing
Like,
it in the
that's something that
safest
just-
spot
Oh.
ever. That's the crazy thing. I always tell people about floating. I'm like, look, man, you're not strapped in.
Yeah.
You-
It's
you-
not
you
an acid
chose.
trip, and I can turn
Yeah,
it off.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's cool, right? Like,
yeah,
that you
yeah.
can do that.
It was fun, but at the same time,
You wish you didn't have to.
yeah,
talk
man. I
yourself
wish I could just give him the fucking keys and just. Wow!
And that's the
'Cause I was
learning.
right there.
Yep.
And I haven't floated in a few weeks, so
Yeah.
I'm a little out of practice.
Dude, it sounds like a money float to me.
It was a
man.
great float. Don't get me wrong. I'm
And see-
a little out of practice.
That's what's so fucking incredible about the fact that these things aren't happening is you can literally do one psychedelic experience. You can put somebody in what you just did. They fucking drop, they give the keys up, and they come back, and it could have been what most people say. A lot of the research states that it's like one of the top 1 to 2 to 3 experiences of their entire
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
Your
Like-
entire life. If you're listening to this, and you've never don't just run out. But it sounds so bad.
Yeah.
But if you've never experienced kind of quote unquote whatever heroic dose, but it's fucking with you forever.
Yeah. Well, not actually, not quite so. Because the studies actually show that the people that didn't have a good time, because
I'm saying the good time comes with
they
it.
followed up with them 6 months, 8 months, a year later.
Yeah.
And the people that had a good time,
Yep.
it did fucking stick with them.
Yeah.
The people that didn't have a good time,
Right.
it didn't. And
Right.
it was just like, oh, that was just that weird thing I did like a
That's
year ago.
interesting,
Like
yeah.
I didn't, I completely
it's
forgot
not
about
this-
that. And it's like, it's not like they're like, holy shit, yeah, sit down and let me explain to you my bad trip. No, it was just like it was like a thing that they just wrote off as like a thing I did.
And that's a perfect example to have like an expert or somebody talk about that thing, because that'd be fucking terrifying if you have a 50-50. Like, fuck, man, I'm not going to let go of the steering wheel. I'm going to have that bad trip, and then it goes with me forever. So I'm going to have
Right.
this fucking weird panic attack in the back of my brain at all times, like psychosis. You know what I mean? And that the fact that it doesn't happen, and the fact that there's research to present and statistics and everything else, those are the conversations. I know psychedelics isn't going to be the very first conversation,
Right.
but definitely from the standpoint of studying. Actually, I take it back, man. If you want to look at some of the studies that are taking place right now, like with MDMA, it had on phase 2 an 80% efficacy rate. I think phase 3 is like 65 to 75. I don't know.
Yeah.
Efficacy rate of people that have had untreatable PTSD for a minimum of 16 years or some shit like that. That should be on the count. That should just be handed out left and fucking right. We talk about it all day long. You'll hear, no matter what political persuasion you are, anything else, any commercial that has to do with the emotional heartstrings of a warrior returning home with PTSD or everything is a big fucking deal. But yet we got this goddamn thing over here that could potentially not make it a big deal. Mm-hmm. And now, thank God, it was fast tracked with the FDA, because somebody like Rick Doblin has spent 30 years of his damn life becoming an expert at how to get things clinically, through the FDA channels, everything else, and he's doing it. But
Rick Doblin at MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies.
They literally have a drug right now that could potentially, quote unquote, if you want to look at numbers in combination with the word cure PTSD.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah.
That's ridiculous, and yet nobody knows about it. And it's not like we should be talking about this. What's going on? What are the mechanistic reasonings? Can this be facilitated to where we have psychiatrists here with a very, very professional place where they do MDMA assisted psychotherapy. And that's insane.
Levi and I have been doing our damnedest to educate ourselves, Kai.
Sorry.
I hope we're doing okay.
That's good.
So Kai, let's go back to you, man. We're terrible at actually hosting a podcast.
Oh, it's all good.
But so you got students for sensible drug policies, which, by the way, there has been a few things like it makes you angry, everything like that. You get it. I understand that. But how do we, outside of education, you got to keep it sensible, man, because in my opinion, it's very easy to take an idea, any idea, and for that idea to actually present itself as part of your identity. Before you know it, you are defending your identity and not discussing an idea.
You don't seem to be like super like identified. You know what I mean? Like you seem to be very objective, like looking at like the science of it, and just like you're not, you know what I mean? You don't have all your chips in one basket. You know what I mean? Like if something were to come out tomorrow saying that this is actually really bad for you, you would read it and be like, okay, yeah, this is really bad for you.
That's my point. So
You know what
how
I
do
mean?
you
Like you seem pretty objective about this.
how do you make sure that color is shown moving forward, especially once you start taking this, past just organizing the thought?
I think that, keeping, self-interest and my own personal bias out of the subject is, hugely beneficial towards trying to make something convincing. Because if I just went out there and just told all my stories and stuff, that's not gonna really help much.
Right.
But
Leave
but
the storytelling to
it
us.
is necessary because experiences help other people understand what they're gonna experience as well. But I think that empirical evidence, coming from I've always been kind of a scientific person, always want to have the facts, chasing questions, and so I think being able to present real evidence is absolutely the number one most powerful, convincing thing you can do for any type of argument.
Could agree with you more.
Yeah. Do you have like a go-to, like if you were to, like want to share this evidence with somebody, like is there like a hub, like a central that you would send somebody to, like or like your website, or is there like NIH or anything like that? Like
I think there's a couple different places you could. I know that Johns Hopkins and MAPS,
Okay.
they're doing a bunch of efforts for research on it, and
Yeah.
I know. I doubt anyone my age really has any like empirical evidence, just because they're not, just the difficulty of being able to access the equipment for doing those type of studies. But if they ever want to pursue a career as a researcher or someone who is just involved with understanding these types of substances, then absolutely they need to go work for one of these nonprofits. Definitely, I'd say.
MAPS, normal.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one. Yeah, like so, as far as like us, you know what I mean? Like, how could like we help you? You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
what can
okay.
what can we help? How can we help the sensible students for sensible drug policy? Like, what can we do for you?
I think just at this stage right now is just getting the word out that there is a center in Lincoln, a place where people can go to talk about this this stigmatized topic, where their opinions are valued, because even if someone came in and talked about why they are against it, I'd still be open to allowing them come, talk to them about what makes them opposed to it, and understanding can we find a middle ground here, because I'm sure that pro and con, just keeping it divided like that is never really a good state to be in. Finding kind of the middle ground is always the best solution.
Oh yeah. So it's like, yeah, I would love to have a discussion like this. You know what I mean? Like, and do you know if like so this petition that you have, like it's for a ballot?
Yeah.
When is this ballot?
I think it's next year or sometime.
Next year, like
yeah.
okay. And so we've got you'll be at the Union, you said, a couple times this year.
Yep.
And so we can send people to say like to your Facebook page. Is that where we would like
Yep.
if you were to when you go to be there, will you be making posts on your Facebook page?
Yep. So the
Yeah, what should they
SSDP,
follow?
yeah,
Just follow
they
that.
have a Facebook page where we put all our events, and
Okay.
all our events are open to the public as well. So
See, that's fantastic. Where are you holding some of these events? Does the university give you space?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
cool, man. Where at on the university?
It's usually the larger, more public ones. Just agree table and stuff like that. They're going to be at the Union.
Okay.
And then the other ones will probably be in a general classroom somewhere on campus. But all that information will always be posted on the Facebook page with an event post.
And that's gotta. Sorry, I was just gonna say that's gonna help so much too, because if you haven't already noticed, they're an official chapter of the University of Nebraska Lincoln. That's a big deal. It's not you don't just become a chapter.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
like, because UNL is part of the state.
Yeah,
So the
it is.
state is like literally putting efforts towards legalizing marijuana. So that's
Well, we
put
should
that on your plate, Pete Riggins.
we should definitely put our efforts towards, like Kai said, education, understanding. We should remain passionately curious all the time. If you shut those doors down, they're not there. You're only doing yourself a disservice.
I actually have an idea. Have you been in contact with anybody at Lincoln Exposed?
I don't think so.
So there's this local festival coming up. I think it's like the 14th year of it.
For petitioning?
Yeah, this February. Like, it'd be a great spot for you to get your word out. It's
Okay.
So it's all local bands. I think it's gonna be like it was over 100 bands last year. It's like 4 days, all downtown bars. You get like a wristband, and you can go. And then they stagger it, so it's like there's always music playing at 5 bars downtown. You just rotate, and it's over 100 bands over the 4 days. You guys could get a table there. I'm sure they would be into something like this. They are a very, very open group. They work with KZUM, Lincoln Exposed. I've been playing that festival, local festival over the past few years, and they are awesome. I think that would be a great like a platform for you.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. Thank you
hook you
for
up, yeah.
for letting me know about that.
And I not to open up the door to there's a very wide spectrum of people when we start talking.
How
about
dare
trucks,
you?
but do you no not Lincoln Explosive. I'm just saying you guys are obviously still organizing. You're pretty fresh. You got a lot of ideas. Are you eventually going to be opening up memberships to, or is it already, or do you take volunteers? How
yeah.
where are you getting your manpower from, basically?
That's kind of the stage we're in right now, is just finding people. I think that's really the hardest, just because.
So what are you looking for, I guess?
Just people who are willing to, contribute to the cause. Maybe give an hour of their time to help set up a table or something and talk to people who come by, or even just come attend one of the events. I think I don't know. Even myself, I'm kind of lazy on these things and not one to go out to just an event I don't really I'm familiar with. So I think that's one of the hardest
Well, I don't
parts.
know, man. You're getting out there. I saw you at that Shane Moss comedy special, man. I mean, like, you're doing some work. You're getting out there.
Yeah, but I mean, even like ask me to go to like one of these meetings, 2 years ago while I was a freshman at the university, like I probably would have turned it down.
Yeah.
But
Well, there's a competence level to everything too, and that comes with understanding. That comes through education and research, everything else. Also questioning yourself. That's the beautiful thing. Like when you brought up science earlier, I feel the same way. But I always like to keep that caveat of the portal being available and not making things so rigid and so cold and there is some mysticism and spirituality when you start, entering in the realm of exploring your consciousness, man.
Yeah,
I sure so
absolutely.
can't tell you what it is. But you're going to have those people that jump one direction or another, and it doesn't need to be that either. Even within the pro-drug community per se, that's what just happened. I mean, that's what happened from the 50s all the way to the 70s, and it created a rift right there, where people were like anti-scientific method because of its rigidity, and then more pro, just almost metaphysical, but that's the cool thing too, is this is a genre that we can study, that we can facilitate, we can look at. It's like the frontier of space, man, but right?
Inner space, dude. We're on the frontiers of inner space.
If you wanted to go travel and try to answer some of these questions, we got to wait years and years for the sun to hit a planet the right way, to look at its chemical composition. But these plants and everything else are here, man, right now.
Exactly.
I had that same. God damn it! I had the same thought in the float tank, dude. I was just like, "What a fucking planet we live on, man!" It's like spinning around this star, but at the same time it's spinning, so it has this like diurnal day-night cycle. How fucking crazy is that? Like, you go in the float tank and it's light outside, and you get out of the float tank and it's fucking dark out. That beautiful, man. Like, I don't know, the float tank's a fucking weird guy.
See, and this is all natural, boys and girls. Like,
I'm on a natural high right now. Man, I'm fucking floating.
But that's the truth, man. I mean, there is a lot that I think everybody would even benefit from, just allowing themselves to open up their minds to anything, whether that be the exploration of their own consciousness, or the idea that people should be able to just study these molecules that exist in nature normally. Because if we all just do the same thing, like a lot of people don't even realize what Jesse just said, and it actually, I think, makes people feel better when you realize. I actually think it doesn't make you feel smaller when you look at the immensity of something like a molecule or the universe. I actually think it makes you feel larger.
Oh, so yeah, it's
because
huge.
you're part of something bigger.
When you look at something like so vast and just amazing like that, dude, it's just like super just gratifying to be alive. You know what I mean? Like, like that phrase, like, what a time to be alive. Like, you could say that at any point in time in history. Like, you know what I mean? What a time to be alive. It's like I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's true. But Jesse's, man. No more
Somebody dosed my float tank, I think.
Come on there.
Oh, gee whiz.
But yeah, so I guess the very first step is the boring stuff of it, but just doing the work, putting the foot forward is the medical marijuana, having those conversations.
Yeah, that's
But
I mean,
God,
that's an obvious
that
one because there
sounds
are
so
like empirical evidence, man.
But doesn't that make you immediately just want to like fucking throw your hands in the air? Because do I really want to walk that road for the next 30 fucking years just to have the very first sensible
It's like, do I
conversation?
have to become Rick
What I'm
Doblin
trying
against
to-
Pete Ricketts?
Yeah.
Because he.
What I'm trying to figure out is where's the nuclear ball? Where's the button, man? Where's the football? And how do you didn't do that sensibly? But how do you get the right team involved, the right minds involved, the right prescription where like, look, I really truly think what it is I love the grassroots movement. I love petitions. I know all that is it has to happen. That's great. And the only way it will happen is if a legislative body actually puts something on a ballot and people decide from a grassroots perspective to make the fucking change.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, man. But we all are fucking interconnected now through the like we're doing right now. We're podcasting. This was going to be my point. And as I'm sitting here doing it, there is potentiality for conversation previous to like I just need to get. It's not previous to, but in conjunction with obviously garnering signatures, things like that. There needs to be a conversation, number one. And there needs to be dialogue and there needs to be accurate nomenclatures and language in order to have these conversations sensibly. I can have the conversation all fucking day where I'm like, this is bullshit. You know, like, this shouldn't happen. I really hope you guys formulate and create language around this to be able to talk to people and to create a resonance of understanding whether science goes one way or the other way.
Yeah, the fact that you put sensible in
dude,
your name,
that was
man.
key, man.
Students for Sensible Drug Policy
It's important.
Yeah, it is, man. Like that, like that makes me feel comfortable putting this
Yeah.
into your hands, man. And how old are you, Kai?
I'm 20.
Yeah.
20 years old, ladies and gentlemen. The
shit.
kids are all right.
And see, that's another thing too. Is like when we start talking about things like that, like technically your prefrontal cortex isn't even fully established yet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even have a fully functioning brain yet, and that's a beautiful thing.
How dare you?
Take that, Kai. But isn't that interesting? Like, right, like by 24 on average, when you have a fully functioning brain, from a neocortex standpoint of like being a human being, a rational, pragmatic human being. But the thing is, like, we can take that same concept of still developing, still learning, with also this thing where you're 60 years old, man, and you're just stuck in this fucking bubble.
Yeah.
And we all have these echo chambers. So hey, my whole point of this was growth. Like, you're going to keep learning and going to keep expanding and become more pregnant, more rational, more of an adult, more things like that. And if you can move forth with sensibility, if you can move forth with anything with sensibility, it's going to be better than standing ground, digging your heels and defending your position, doing it further. And it just creates this fucking rift, this dichotomy.
Yeah,
That's where we are.
That's the debate. That's not the
That's
discussion.
the debate. That's not the discussion.
Right. I love that you framed it that way. Like you said, it's like to have a debate or have a discussion rather than a debate.
Yeah.
Debate, you want to win. That's the point of a debate. A debate is to argue your point and to win. But here's the thing: if you have a discussion, you might find out that you agree on 1 out of 30 fucking 3 things.
A discussion, the idea is to learn. A debate, the idea is to win. So it's like having that framed as a discussion is brilliant. Kai.
Yeah, and I'm pretty optimistic, just about the idea of a discussion, and because I think, having the word sensible in there applies to more than just people who are pro drugs or con drugs.
Right.
It appeals to anybody who is rational. If we can make a discussion about why drug use should be a human right and not something that should be impeded by government, that right there you can establish a discussion for something that is sensible, something that makes sense to people, rather than just what they've always heard is just something that they've been told. And so
See, like, what do you think people here? Let's say you take the 65-year-old lady, a small town from Nebraska, never knew any different, came from the echo chamber of whatever life she came through experiences. Totally normal. We're all products of one experience or another. But what do you think the first thought is that comes to somebody in that position that's kind of solidified in their ways when you talk about drugs? Is the first thought them doing drugs, kids doing drugs in her community, which is my thing that I think it is, or does she look at the ramifications of drugs? Like, what, you get what I'm saying? You bring up we're gonna have a drug conversation, just boom, exists in the atmosphere of that context where we are more or less in very rural.
Dude, I just got
community.
done floating. You're killing me.
So if you want to take the population metrics of Nebraska and try to create discussion, everything else, you can't look at this from a Lincoln or an Omaha perspective. It's not how Nebraska's set up.
Right, yeah, okay.
So if you go to the diner in wherever middle of nowhere, Nebraska, Fall City,
That's where I'm from.
and you say the word drugs and any kind of, what I'm saying is there almost has to be a set and setting, and then to have
Yeah.
these conversations first and foremost.
And I think you need to create a starting ground for that. And I
100%.
think where you can create that ground is, by coming to a unanimous conclusion that, humans should be able to do what they want to themselves as long as it doesn't affect
far
others.
ahead, right? Like I could.
Mhm,
That's
yeah.
the easy conclusion for me.
Yeah.
That's not going to be the conclusion for Mary sitting at the gas station in Fall City, 65 years old. Never left the town. So my point is, like, when she hears the word drugs, what's the first thing that comes to her mind? Is it her during drugs?
How could we speak for Mary, man?
Dude, Mary's a hypothetical person. Okay, we could put any words we want to in her mouth. Because my point is, there's always going to be almost a knee-jerk stigma that takes place that creates a reactionary environment.
Yeah.
And so you have to have language that pre-establishes some type of narrative prior to that cage door shutting, man.
Yeah.
Where that's what's going to happen. So my point is, I couldn't agree with you more. There needs to be sensible conversation, but there needs to be sensible dialogue in order. There needs to be some type of formulated marketing.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, it is
I got
marketing.
it. You just wear a lab coat.
That's true, man.
Yeah.
Mary won't question you one bit. If
I'm
you're
a
wearing
doctor.
If you're wearing a lab coat, just be like, I'm from the Students for Sensible Drug Policies.
Not to to digress a little bit, but this always, I get shit for this, man. I own a yoga studio and I love yoga. I love it. But I get shit because I am not, like, the people that don't, like, do yoga for the reasons I do. I'm not against or anything else, but that's not why I love yoga. I'm pretty scientifically sound. Like, I like the functional aspect of yoga. I like the spatial orientation, the proprioception, the movement, the meditation, the mindfulness. But you're not going to see me with, like, a crystal or anything like that or get into that. And that's not bad. What I'm saying, though, is somebody who's never done yoga that might be a mindset won't do it because they think it's that.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to talk about from this drug standpoint. Like, when you bring up yoga or going to a head shop or whatever, you don't picture, again, somebody in a lab coat. You picture some hippie, and then all of a sudden, where does that next? Drugs, everything else. So it's in the same context of irrationality, like of non-pragmatism. I'm just saying it has this unfortunate narrative.
Yeah.
And without creating a better narrative, I think it's just always gonna be stuck.
Right? It's like,
It's a weird way.
I wonder if there's like,
Like Pete Ricks might see it in a different narrative. It's probably a very, very smart guy, but it's political.
Right.
So that's not the tack motive. The tack motive is, like you said, it's educating people. It's bringing it up. But you're not gonna have a hard time educating kids at UNL.
Yeah.
right,
It's
right.
gonna be really fucking easy.
It's pretty easy.
It's gonna be really, really fucking easy, man. Now, if you go to some places, like if you go, some places are changing up, but I don't know, like an establishment. I just had a perfect one in mind, but anyway, there's a lot of very conservative, very. This is just the way we do it type
Yeah.
thinking in Nebraska. In general, and you're gonna have to have a narrative to breach that.
Yeah, I think, earlier when you had said, like,
Mary.
identifying...
Who the fuck is Mary? Sorry.
Earlier when you had said identifying which conversation are we having,
Yes.
right? Like, because we're not having a debate, we're having a discussion, and right now we're discussing the business of it.
Yeah.
And I think
I
Nebraskans
think that's a
will
goddamn
listen
good way to do it.
to that. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like,
I
if
think
like
that is it.
like what was that? Illinois made how many millions of dollars in the first like 2 days of legalizing it over there? Like, I mean, like when fucking our farmers are just getting hit like they did last year, when they see these numbers just don't lie. You know what I mean? Numbers don't have that stigma. You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be the way to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's where you bring it back into the science standpoint of the lab coat. You have math behind this. You have
Exactly, yeah.
reasoning, understand it. You have studies behind it, but there are no studies right now. But yeah, you're right. Like they just federally passed the Farm Bill right last year, so you can grow hemp now. statewide.
Step
federally. It's pretty incredible, but that's a conversation right there where there's almost, you notice how, so here's a good example. You make it economical, you make it businessy, and it does change fast. And maybe I'm just pulling this out of my ass right now, but if you would have a year ago said the word CBD around a large percentage of the population in Nebraska, you would have said a fucking bad word. Just like if you said shrooms or some shit like that, especially from a shroom instead of, the non-Paul Stamets way of saying it, right? You look like, oh fuck, what's he talking about? Talking about that marijuana. No, as soon as it became a business thing and everybody was able to create a different dialogue, the business side of CBD took the fuck over. And now the normal conversation of this is the difference between CBD, this is the difference between cannabis, like that didn't even happen.
Yeah.
It's just it's happening now. There's like a funnel that like, oh, okay, they're just
That's
different.
what I mean, like,
but you couldn't have had that conversation and then created that. It was like there was like you said, it was a business first. And the business was so big, so fucking powerful.
That's what I'm saying, man.
It took over any narrative. I agree with you. There's a business perspective
that's
there.
the way to do it.
But I don't know the numbers on that too because I haven't followed any of it. Like when you look at Colorado, you look at places like that. I hear good numbers, but obviously I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you benefit? Are you just giving this to big monopolies? Can you have places locally that does this create jobs? Especially those would be great conversations to have.
I got a question about the SSDP, man. Like, so this is a national
Are you
thing.
down with SSDP?
Right. Yeah, you know me. So it's a national thing. You've got the Lincoln chapter. So is there an Omaha chapter?
I think there might be one, but
Okay.
the Lincoln one's the only recognized one by the Nationals.
Okay. Get on it,
Really?
Omaha. So like, where's like the hub, right? Where's the SSD hub? Is that Washington?
Yeah, I can't say for certain where it is. I think they have a big one in Washington just because it's right by, where all the legislators meet and everything. And so they try to do a lot of events over there. But, it's so, the organization's so large that they actually have representatives of the Nationals, which kind of take care of each region.
Okay. So that's what I was wondering. Like, is there like a representative from the SSDP that you could like have come here and give a talk? Like, is that something that
Again, it would just be you just have to market it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, like, if you were to get something like into Lincoln Exposed or something like that, like you could get a platform to have a representative come down from SSDP to have a discussion.
What
like
is
that.
the discussion like what is
Business, man.
I know. That's what I'm saying. What would be the number one business discussion right now concerning?
It's a cash crop, right?
Yeah.
No, I think, but what I'm saying is for the state of Nebraska. Obviously, the cells, of course, everything like that. But is there the potential for growing? Are we the right climate, environment, things like that? I'm wondering. Yeah. I'm just trying to look at what are all the different.
Yeah, I suppose like maybe that representative could like reach out to some of those farmers that got.
There might be good stuff there.
That hemp bill passed, right? And so only like a handful of farmers got like a license to grow it. Is right? You had to apply for the license. So maybe like. Dude, I don't know. I'm just trying to plant seeds in your because I'd love to see this SSDP thing grow, man. Like, yeah, if like you had like a representative come down, like he could like get some numbers from some farmers that have got the license.
I got a question for you guys
that
it should be obvious. I should know this. So I know it's federally illegal for marijuana sales, but is it legal for medicinal marijuana federally?
No, I think it's still illegal.
No shit. Still,
yeah.
From a medicinal standpoint.
Even though that's like the most oxymoronic thing ever. Schedule 1 means it has no medicinal purposes, but there's medical marijuana. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Congress.
You know what? I've ever seen the biggest change though, and whenever I've seen the Marys of the world that I was trying to conjure up, but you helped me zero.
Dude. I'm trying to like stamp the Mary out in my
Mary
head.
got cancer or Mary was in pain or Mary had a family member that was dying,
there you go.
They'll be like, just inject that shit now because there's potential that it might help because now they're willing to do anything in it. And it dissolves that whole stigma.
That's the other side of the coin, man.
It's
like,
death, dude.
when you show
You're
them like
die.
the business side of it, and then the other side is like, oh yeah, it helps dying people cope with dying.
And we got to stay so
Deal.
The science has to stay so on top of everything because I don't know the statistics, but from you looking from a PhD, a research scientist, to an MD practicing standpoint scientist, they're at least 5 to 10 years behind.
Yeah,
usually.
it's a long process.
And so you're talking like, you want to fucking not die from cancer, you need to get on board with this shit now.
Yeah.
I know that sounds so terrible, but cancer might be one of the big ones. Might be one of the pushers.
Mhm.
Literally everybody's fucking scared of getting cancer.
Yeah,
Especially if you live in bumfuck Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody there's knows somebody that has died from cancer or
Oh,
has
yeah.
cancer or whatever. And I know those conversations are taking place. And if they could get, you'll try anything.
Oh yeah, dude.
And you should. And that's the same thing as with consciousness. But all of a sudden now it's your fucking life. Now you think everybody should have the right to live. Yeah. Yep. Yes, I agree. We can all. There we go. That's it. Everybody should have the right to live. Is something we can all agree on, right? Even everybody should have the right to, sovereignty over their own consciousness. Yeah. I wouldn't think too many people would disagree, but the right to live is a big one. And just like, healthcare is always a big topic for, the right to healthcare.
The right to die.
The right, that's a good point, man.
It's like-
That's what I think, like the right
You know
to
what I mean? Like, 'cause
consciousness.
that's like what we're talking about, right? It's just like, how
Yeah,
do
but
you
look
want to
how-
choose to die? Like,
Yeah, but
like
they-
comfortably, preferably, thank you, with some
But nobody's
medical
gonna
marijuana.
fight you on your right to live.
Right.
They fight the fuck out of the right to die. Like
Yeah.
it's only legal in like 2 states, man.
That's a tricky one, right? That's a can of worms I haven't really thought too much about. But I mean, I think that's
Kevorkian,
like
is
the
that his
door we're
name?
knocking on. Is
Was it Jack Kevorkian went to prison for fucking ever?
Kevorkian, yeah.
Kevorkian? Poor guy.
Doc
He's
Dick
literally
Dad.
just helping people die, man. It's still illegal, I think, in the state of Nebraska to kill yourself.
Yeah.
To commit suicide.
It's a crazy, it's a crazy thing.
Sorry, this happens all the time.
Ah,
man.
man.
But
Kai,
again, I'm just
reel
trying
us
to
in, man.
find. I'm trying to find a resonating like the pitchfork. Just what do you hit? And I think the right to live is a big one, man. And cancer, I don't give a shit. Everybody's scared of getting cancer,
Fuck yeah.
and cancer's already synonymous with marijuana.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
already become
Because it's like
synonymous with it.
because it gives you the appetite.
There's a lot. There's a
Like-
potentiality for a lot with cancer
Because
and
that
THC
ghrelin
and CBD.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's what happens is that protein activates and you eat. And you gotta
Yes,
eat.
you do.
But there's also some maybe anti-cancer effects potentially from THC. There's also a lot of symptomatic stuff with CBD. It's crazy. You could go tell anybody to go, I don't know. When something has...
oh man, imagine if Nebraska was like the place, like where all this studying is being done.
Well, we
You know
gave
what I mean?
money
Like,
to
UNMC
MAPS.
is
So
doing
if
some
MAPS
stuff.
is listening to us right now, we better have one of those MDMA clinics here.
Right? Yeah.
Don't fly over us,
Oh
man.
man, like, cause it's like talking about money. Like, there's, it's like, let's get some of those grants, those
Well,
federal
dude, and
grants.
again, if we're all honest, at the end of the day, as gross as it sounds and everything else, I mean, if you own an oncology clinic, it's to make money, right? And if cancer, I mean, so there is always going to be a business, and that's probably, like you said, potentially the right way to address it is like, where's the money and sensibly.
is
how
that
do
the
we
way you
do
guys are gonna
this?
go, Kai? You think?
I think that's one route that we could take.
And it
Yeah,
doesn't
for sure.
have to be like, all right, find the guy who's going to be benefited from this most, get him on fucking board. Let's
Warren
do this.
Buffett.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, and I mean, it has worked. You look at like Switzerland, who legalized heroin,
Okay.
and the very very conservative population there. Yet
Yeah,
they
yeah.
still legalized heroin because they established these clinics for people who were they had such a horrible epidemic over there. People dying in the streets, injecting everywhere, and so they said, no, you can't really do much worse than this besides open up clinics. And problem went away.
Really?
Taxpayers were saving a bunch of money.
That's the other fucking thing.
Taxpayers. Yeah.
Everybody knows the statistics, but I think if it comes from the right mouths or everything else, when we look at how much it costs,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good question. It's like
the mental health, the everything, the way that people die or end up in the system we spend billions and billions and billions of dollars, and there's these medicinal potential avenues that would eradicate a lot of that,
Yeah.
for sure. That expenditures.
it's fucked. Fuck.
It is fucked, but it might be the only way.
Right? Yeah. I mean,
So those are two different conversations, right? You can even feel when we're talking about it now, it has a different resonance with us than if we're like start talking about everybody who's getting jailed and all that shit. Like that's fucking real. But that immediately gives me the more like, let's go fight. And,
Dude, and
then
do you know what the crazy fucking part of it is? It's like, so it's illegal, right? There's people going to prison for pot.
Yes.
For sure.
There's fucking drugs in prison. Like, I know somebody that went to prison and tripped on LSD
for the first
prison.
time.
Not for the first
No,
time.
you know what I mean? Like, you
It's
are
like-
gonna have.
It's like, dude, there's drugs. Rip it in prison.
Well,
like, what is this kind of crazy shit? Like, what are we doing?
it's the same thing.
We're
It creates
beating our heads against the
it
wall.
creates a
man.
vacuum,
Like,
man.
That blew my fucking mind, man. Like, it's like
You want to finish up with like
LSD in prison.
let's finish up with like one of the big ones, and I think people
senseless drug laws. These are senseless drug laws. We need sensible drug laws.
That's right. It's true. They are senseless. One of the big ones, of course, they're just. I could go on
Prohibition
and on. But
doesn't
one
work.
that freaks me the fuck out. That is just not a topic of conversation. It's a huge topic of conversation, but this angle is never discussed on those TV things where people talk to you and they're supposed to be pundits and experts and everything else. There's only fucking one reason there's a cartel problem.
Yes. Yep.
One of the biggest, scariest problems in the world. Like, if there's ISIS, we fucking send fucking people to go kill them all day long. Like, please kill them. Don't let them come over here.
Right.
Well, guess what? There's a giant ocean between us and them.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason there's cartels where there isn't a giant ocean and there's a big, scary fucking problem where they can literally control the Mexican government and shut down the military is because drugs are illegal in the United States.
Yeah, like, man, like
What the
prohibition
fuck?
obviously doesn't work.
No.
There's that joke where it's like, we'd like to thank the war on drugs for winning. We'd like to thank drugs for winning the war on drugs. Like,
They dominated.
yeah, drugs won the war. Let's end the war for the love of all.
And see, that's where you can start going into some of the silly stuff. And that's where my brain goes so easy, where I can talk about the fact that alcohol is fucking legal. And
Yeah, it's
somebody,
like it's senseless. Let's like have some sense.
and there's enough research and enough science now that you can actually show. You don't have to make up fake climate change graphs or any bullshit
And it
to try
starts-
to present your ideology. It literally has been shown that it's not toxic to go and do an LSD trip, to go do
Right,
still
right.
stuff. But if you go drink a cup of whiskey with your friend, even though I'm cool with that, do that too. It's fucking bad for you.
Yeah, it's going to poison
It
you
is
to death.
toxic.
Yeah.
Literally. But we could go all party and get shit faced and puke all over a bar, and we could joke about it the next day with Pete or anybody else we want, because we've all experienced this thing. It's kind of fun, but I stayed out a little late last night, and there's always going to be a chuckle. Doesn't matter if it's Mary or whoever you're talking
Mary
to.
gets that one, right?
We all get it, right? It's been socially accepted.
Enough of this senseless drug laws. Let's have some sensible drug laws.
And not to mention how many less people would then abuse maybe potentially alcohol.
Of course,
things
yeah.
like
I
that.
think like
if
in
I
those
could-
places like Portugal like legalized it too. And,
Dude, when you go
and-
get high, do you want to like go fucking fight that dude next to you? No,
want to fight the burrito.
I want to fight that burrito in my face.
Oh man!
And then
so,
we're making more money for the burrito vendors.
All jokes aside, like this,
Sorry.
the senselessness stops with. Well, I guess it starts. The sensibleness starts with medical marijuana, right?
It does.
'Cause That's,
Yes.
what we're,
Yeah,
that's what we're
that's
trying
what
to do
we're
with the SSDP is getting medical marijuana on the ballot, and you can do that by following the Students for Sensible Drug Laws,
Follow
drug
them on
policies. Excuse me,
Facebook.
SSDPs, Students for Sensible Drug Policies. On Facebook, they have a national chapter, and there's a Lincoln chapter. Kai Johnson, thank you so much for being here, man. Like,
Yeah,
is there
dude.
anything else you'd like to say?
Nope. It's my pleasure for being here. Thank you guys.
Yeah, for
man,
sure. Thanks
absolutely.
for-
And please, Kai, seriously, push as much content as you can, because
Yeah, send us all the links.
the
I will.
bullhorn won't, it won't
Yeah.
create itself either. You know, there has to be a consistent thing, man. It's just got to become routine, and people start paying attention. And if you do that, we'll know when there's gonna be a thing at the union, and we'll show up. If you don't, we won't fucking know. But there will be a handful of people at the university who know already that you're not trying to convert. You know what I mean? There's people that are on the fence all the time. There's passionate, curious people. Nebraska's a fucking awesome place. We have great people, and a lot of people are willing to take those blindfolds off to help other people.
Yeah.
So.
Hell yeah! And instead of a musical outro today, I'm actually I got
What?
something a little prepared. I'm
Huh?
going to put on post. Like I made a track for fun
all
lately,
right,
and
man.
I'll tack it on
Well-
after the podcast is over. And so,
I'll finish with some house cleaning though. Is that
all right,
cool?
cool. Yeah, yeah.
All
What do
right.
we got here at Lost and Float?
So shit. Switching different hat here.
Business.
Business. Got my business
And now
socks on.
something completely different.
So, New Year's resolutions, man. New year, new you. Here's the deal. You got a resolution, you're ready to put it to the test. I got a challenge for you.
All right.
There will be a newsletter going out tomorrow. It's going to go out at 6 a.m. and it's going to present a 60-day yoga challenge. Pretty simple. Whoever does the most yoga classes in 60 days is going to win 500 schmackaroos, man. You buy a lot of drugs with that. A lot of sensible drugs with that. So, here's the thing that I think people might be tripped up on a little bit is it doesn't start tomorrow. You can start any day in January, and from that start date, you have 60 days.
Okay.
So it's great, man. You can start tomorrow. You can start January 31st, right? And obviously, January 31st, I think 60 days is March 31st.
Okay.
So you'd be done. We'd tally your score. And obviously, January 31st, the last day that somebody's going to be able to do this challenge. So we'll have to wait for those people that do start January 31st. March 31st comes along. We're going to see who did the most classes.
Okay.
If you did the most classes, you're going to get $500.
Sweet.
The other cool thing is we have other prizes too. So I should have the list in front of me, but potentially if you do about 2 classes a week, I think we got it at like 16. We'll hook you up with a Lost and Flow t-shirt. We're going to make some special t-shirts to let people know that you're changing your life, doing badass things. And we'll also hook you up with a sauna session. I think the next one after that's like 3 times a week. Don't quote me on any of this. And then we're going to hook you up with a cryotherapy session. You got to recover from all that work. Then I think if you come like 33 times in 60 days, so basically half the amount of days, we're going to hook you up with a float.
Okay.
So that's like $145 worth of added value right there. $500 for the grand prize. So you could technically be the person that wins and gets all 3 of those because everybody can get the other 3. There can only be one winner, but everybody can win a sauna, a cryotherapy,
cool.
a t-shirt, and a float. Every single participant.
Right on.
It's only going to be only one bad.
So the grand prize winner automatically gets all those other prizes.
For sure. Yeah.
Right.
They're getting it all, man. But here's the other cool thing. If you're not a member, yoga member or anything like that, and you're like, well, fuck, I want to do that, but that's what I got to buy a package. I made a package specifically for this. It's going to be a yoga package that's going to have 144 classes in it. That's if you came to every single class. And that package is going to expire 60 days from the first day you use it, as long as you start it within the month of January.
Okay.
So you practically have an unlimited amount of classes. It's only $120. So if you come in and you get to that like 3 classes a week type thing, you're already going to pay the thing back just through floats and cryos and saunas and t-shirts that you win. Also, you could even make money. So, $120 is it. It's going to get you 144 classes. You come in and go yoga crazy. We'll also create like a hashtag so we can have fun, so you can rub it in everybody's face like if you're kicking ass. Like it's like your second one a day.
Oh, yeah.
Freak people out, get them all going. The other thing is, man, it's supposed to be fun. So we're going to have a good time. Newsletter will be going out tomorrow at 6 a.m. And then we're basically just going to push it and market it every single day because you can sign up every single day. We'll have a Google registry form. You just go in there, tell us what day in January you want to start. It'll ask for your phone number. We'll contact you. We'll explain the process to you. Just make sure we're all on the same page. If you want to purchase a membership to do it, that's probably the best way to do it because 2 months worth of a membership is only going to cost you $140 for unlimited yoga. But then you get to go sauna right after the yoga session with all the other people, and you get discounted floats and cryos, so just you can recover from all your awesome.
Nice.
And so this is a way where you can take that New Year's resolution and actually fucking do something about it, and you'll get a bunch out of it. I don't know. Any questions about that? Because I think that's the first you've heard of it, right?
Yeah.
So it starts tomorrow.
Starts tomorrow. Woo.
Yeah,
Fun.
starts tomorrow. You can sign up any day in January. If any college kids from our listeners need some cash, man, this is your chance, right?
$500.
And yeah, yoga's amazing for you. You get the mindfulness, you get the meditation from it, you get the physical ability from it, and so it's a holistic approach to a good resolution for a new year. New you.
Nice.
Yes.
Very fun.
All right.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Kai, thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for dealing with us.
It was fun. I hope you had a good
totally
flow.
want to
Yes.
support you, and we want to follow us, and we want you to keep going, dude. Don't give up. It's going to be boring at times. It's going to get muddy, but just you gotta forge on, man. Somebody's got to fucking do it.
Yep.
All right, brother.
The future is bright.
Bye-bye, guys.
See ya.
When you observe the world, you see people, you see houses, you see the sky, you see tangible objects. But when you observe yourself within, you see moving images, a world of images, generally known as fantasies. Yet these fantasies are facts. It is a fact that a man has such and such a fantasy. And it is such a tangible fact, for instance, that when a man has a certain fantasy, another man may lose his life. Or a bridge is built. These houses were all fantasies. Everything you do here, all of the houses, everything was fantasy to begin with. And fantasy has a proper reality. That is not to be forgotten. Fantasy is not nothing. It is, of course, not a tangible object, but it is a fact nevertheless. It is, say, a form of energy, despite the fact we can't measure it. It is a manifestation of something. And that is a reality that is just a reality as, for instance, the peace treaty of Versailles or something like that. It is no more, you can't show it. But it has been a fact. And so the psychical events are facts, are realities. And when you observe the stream of images within, you observe an aspect of the world within.